Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today's episode is the second for 2023. So I hope as we ease into 2023, I hope the year is starting off great for you. Rhea and I, it's been great for us, and we're excited to get 2023 rolling. Both of us are working on new books. I'm working on the second volume to my book, Blue Collar Leadership Toolbox Tips, 60 Micro Lessons to Maximize Your Influence. Jason Denham, Vice President of Electrical Construction out in Texas at Kilgore Industries. He uses that Blue Collar Leadership Toolbox Tips with his frontline team members. He has different leaders in his organization. They share a different tip each day or each week, something like that. And he's kind of gone through those first 60 lessons. And I saw him at lunch over Christmas. And when he was back home in Alabama, I drove over from Georgia and met him for lunch. We do that pretty much every year. And he said, Mr. Mack, he said, I need another toolbox tip book. He said, that other one's great. He said, it's perfect for my team, growing and developing my frontline team members, keep that drip going, the leadership drip. And he said, I need another one. He said, I also need one for the leaders. So I left from there and got to work. So I'm working on a volume 2 for the traditional toolbox tips. And then after that, I'll get to work on a toolbox tips for leaders as well. But I'm happy to kick off a series with you guys this year in 2023, another 30-part series and this one's going to be focused on content from my book, Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork. You see, the teamwork dilemma is this: team members aren't always team players. And if you work on a team, you already know that. If you don't, wait till you get on a team and you're going to find out that team members aren't always team players. But great teamwork exists when there's a synergy between team members and a collaborative effort by team members to achieve common goals. In today's high stakes game of business, the players on the team are the competitive advantage for any organization. But only if they are collaborating with each other instead of competing with each other. So the organizational culture determines how often and how much teamwork there is in an organization. Far too often, high-performance team members aren't high-performance team players. And many organizations struggle with communication issues, conflict, and departmental silos, finger-pointing, blame, and employees who choose to compete against one another instead of choosing to complete one another as they work together to achieve team goals. So this book is to help you create a culture of teamwork. And I share again, I'm not reading you the book. The book is on audio. So if you listen to audio books, you can get Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork, the 30 Traits of High Impact Players, on audio. It's in paperback format and also ebook. But I'm not going to read it to you. I'm going to read you some highlights. I'll share some quotes from it. Some quotes are my own. Some thoughts are my own. If I share a quote from someone else, I'll definitely give them credit for it. But everything I'm sharing, I'm going to be trying to real hard to put it in the context of teamwork, because that's what the book is about. So as I'm sharing these quotes and thoughts, you may think, well, I've heard this before in a different podcast. And you may have, but it may be a different context. I could teach you the same principle and the principle would be the same, but the stories and the context could be many, many different ways. So again, the context of this book, this 30-part series, is going to be all about teamwork. So it starts with you, but when it comes to a team, it ain't about you, but it starts with you. So you want to create a culture of teamwork. Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork provides a simple yet powerful and unique resource for developing 30 key characteristics that support high-performance teamwork. Team members going through this content will learn characteristics that great team players exhibit, such as how to be trustworthy, responsible, flexible, open-minded, and engaged. I only just shared 5 with you, but I'm going to share 30 with you as we go through these series. Each episode will be about a different characteristic, different character trait. But I just shared 5 with you. Those 5 I just shared, I promise you, if you work on a team, you hope your team members, that your coworkers, you hope they're trustworthy. You hope they're responsible. You hope they're flexible. You hope they're open-minded. You hope they're engaged. I'm going to tell you what, after you go through these 30 chapters over the next 30 weeks with me, these 30 traits, you're going to wish every team member had all 30 of these traits. But what you need to do, that's looking out the window. What you need to do is look in the mirror and make sure you're exhibiting these 30 traits. You've adopted these 30 traits. That's how leaders transform organizations, is they get individuals to adopt and value specific character traits. Can't make someone do that. You can only invite them to do that. And that's what I'm going to do as we kick off 2023 here over the next 30 weeks. We're going to get well into 2023. We'll be over halfway through by the time we finish this series. But I'm going to dive deep into each one of these traits. So if you read a chapter in the book, it only takes you about 6 or 7 minutes, or if you listen to it on audio. But these episodes are probably going to be 20 to 30 minutes long because I'm going to elaborate. I'm going to leave a lot of stuff out that's in the book because I ain't reading the book to you, but I'm also going to elaborate and give you a lot more content than is in the book. But I'm telling you, you need to get the book. You need to read it. You need to. I highly suggest getting a paperback copy, a hard copy, marking it up, folding the pages, making notes, and use it as a tool. These types of books, you don't read these books just to turn the page. You're trying to internalize these lessons, learn how to apply them out there in the real world. So I know some people like learning everything better on audio and that sort of stuff, but if you like this content, again, I highly recommend get the real book, make a tool out of it so you can flip it out and share something with someone, or you can quickly reference it later. So developing an understanding of the impact of each of these 30 characteristics is critical to creating an environment of teamwork. Blue collar leadership and teamwork will motivate and inspire team members to align themselves with these unifying principles, which will ultimately contribute to the achievement of the team's unifying purpose. And Peyton Manning had this to say. He says, it was one of my favorite teamwork quotes. And he says, the most valuable player is the one that makes the most players valuable. And again, that's from Peyton Manning. There's a lot of truth in that statement. The most valuable player is the one that makes the most players valuable. Right? He basically saying it ain't about me, but it starts with me. It's about the team, but it starts with me. Same thing I said to you earlier. So Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork, 30 Traits of High Impact Players, was created specifically to facilitate high impact teamwork at every level and within every department of the organization, regardless of one's position or title. It's been intentionally formatted with my standard format with 90 pages, 30 chapters, 3 pages per chapter. Again, that's for easy reading and also for conducting the BCL sessions, which I call Building Character-Based Leaders session. And one way you can use this book for that is to do a book study. And if you haven't heard my episode teaching you how to facilitate book studies, go check out episode 305. If you got a team, you're trying to build up the team, again, you need to always first, I recommend highly taking people through Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines first. Help them learn how to become a high-impact individual, how to lead themselves well in general. And then this is the book that I stack on top of that one. It's kind of like part 2 to help them, now that they know how to lead themselves well in general, now how do they help them learn how to lead themselves well relative to teamwork. So you kind of build the foundation with Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines, and then Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork, 30 Traits of High Impact Players, you add another layer to that foundation to help them become high impact team players. Again, Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork helps shift the mindset of team members from me to we. And every leader needs team members who are willing to be great team players. And I can tell you, not every team member wants to be a high impact team player. But if you want to build a high performance team, a high impact culture, that's what you're looking for. So I want to tell you a little bit about this book. You know, it's dedicated to the high impact player who made the most positive impact on my life and taught me the most about teamwork. And you may know her, you may have been in the room and met her before, but I'm talking about my amazing wife, Rhea Story. She's got a podcast too. She's got an awesome website, Rhea, RIASTORY.com. If you haven't checked her out, and maybe you don't want to check her out, but maybe you have a significant other in your life, a girlfriend, wife, daughter, mother, somebody who's a female, because Rhea focuses on leadership development and personal growth for women. The same principles she teaches for women, though, they apply to everyone. So I know a lot of guys who follow Rhea's podcast, who read her books for women, and they get a lot out of it. It's because they're mining the gold. They're looking for the principles that apply to all people. But Rhea's always been and always will be the wind beneath my wings. She actually helped me turn my blue collar leadership idea into an amazing blue collar leadership brand. So just want to let you know that's who this book was dedicated to when I wrote it. And I want to acknowledge, as we get started here in this 30-part series, I'd like to thank the high impact players I've been privileged to serve alongside. There have been a lot of them since 1988 when I got going in the Marines, and then in a Marine Infantry Reserve unit, and then also in my work career. 1988, I started working in manufacturing, frontline entry-level factory worker. I wish I would have had that Frontlines book, and I wish I would have had this Teamwork book. I wish it would have been part of the introduction when I got hired there. I wish they would have given me these two books, and it'd been awesome if they would have taught me a class on them, or had somebody who had used the content, who knew the content, to actually teach me that, kind of in my orientation phase. But I never had anything like that during my 20-year manufacturing career that lasted from 1988 to 2008. But I've created this content so those of you out there can go do this for your team. Give them what I wish I would have had. And if you're familiar with this content, I'm sure you wish you would have had it too when you got started out. So you can be that leader for others. But I want to thank those high impact players that I've served alongside. Many of the lessons I'm about to share in this series were learned from those folks. And although they may not have literally taught me those lessons, I still caught those lessons. And that's the thing about high impact leadership principles. It's about these high impact character traits we're going to talk about. They're more caught than taught. So let's dive into it. And I'll go ahead and tell you, if you're not familiar with the book, every one of these chapters starts with the word be. Because see, a lot of people think when you start talking about personal growth and development, you got to do something different. That's really not what it's about. You got to be something different. You got to be somebody different. You got to become someone different. So every one of these chapters starts with the word be, B-E. So chapter 1 is be growth oriented. I kicked off chapter 1 because it's the foundation for the whole book. It's the foundation for all the other books. You're listening to this podcast because you're growth oriented. But what's it mean to be growth oriented relative to teamwork? Why is it important for teamwork? You may be growth oriented for yourself, and that's outstanding. Like I said, it starts with you, but it ain't about you. So you got to be growth oriented, but you got to be growth oriented for the purpose really of helping others become growth oriented. If you're on a team, you want to be a good role model. You want to be a good example. So I want to start off today with a quote here as I dive into this first character trait, be growth oriented, from Albert Einstein. He says, intellectual growth should commence at birth and cease only at death. In other words, you should strive to be a lifelong learner. And that's what I always say. If somebody labels me as a leadership expert, I said, well, let me tell you what that means. Maybe I am a leadership expert, but it doesn't mean I know everything. I said, what leadership expert means to me is I am never going to learn it all, and I'm going to always be growing. I'm going to be a lifetime student of personal growth and leadership development. That's what being growth oriented means to me. But I'm being growth oriented for other people. I read a lot of books that I don't really get a lot out of the book, but I read the book and then it's just crazy. I'll meet someone real soon after that I need to tell about that book. There's books that I have that people won't ever read because they think they don't need them. But that's because they're thinking about it for themselves. They're not thinking about it for others. Just like if you are a man and you haven't read any of my wife Ria's books for women, if you've got women on your team or you got women in your life, you're missing out because you could read one of those books and understand what's in it. Then you could recommend it to somebody, a woman on your team or a woman in your life, in your personal life. They make great gifts. Ria's got a book called Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, Become the Woman You Are Destined to Be. That's a phenomenal book in general, but she wrote it for women. If you got any teenage girls in your house, and that'd be a great book for them, for your wife, for your mother. Anyway, I'm just giving you an example of what it means to be growth oriented for other people. One example, when we're talking about the team, I grow, I read so that I can share stuff with my team. Maybe that I don't need, but maybe that they need. So why should you focus on growth? Again, beyond what I just described, is because growth increases your influence while creating freedom and options. This is the part, again, that's about you. But remember, it ain't about you, but it starts with you. So that motivation to read and grow on purpose, to become growth oriented, you may begin it thinking that it's all about you and what you're going to do and what you're going to accomplish in life. But I hope you grow beyond it being just about you and you make it about other people, especially the team. Because see, if you go to work every day and you work with a team of people, you're the only one growing, you're going to end up being a frustrated team member. So you got to grow in a way that you can become motivational and inspirational to your team. If you're a formal authority leader, it's easy. You just start leading your team through book studies. Just keep a steady, slow leadership drip going to them. Cover a chapter, 1 or 2 chapters a week. If you cover 2 chapters, try to separate it. Do one on Tuesday and one on Thursday or something like that. But at a minimum, cover 1 chapter. We're talking about 10 or 15 minute little micro session of leadership development, workforce development. But when you start growing, you are on your way to having more freedom and more options if you don't stop. Because it's just a byproduct of growth, is you're going to increase your influence. And when you increase your influence, you create freedom and options. And I'm going to tell you this, life is better when you have more freedom and more options. But it's also better for your team members when they have more freedom and more options. Because see, if your team's got the freedom and the option to leave your organization and they don't, they really want to be there. If they don't have freedom and options and they kind of have to be there, they're probably not good team members. So that's another reason you want to grow and develop team members, so they also have freedom and options. And one of them is to leave the organization. But you want to create an organization they don't want to leave, but you want them to have freedom and options that they could. Because then you got team members, team players who want to be on the team. A lot of leaders, they don't know that everybody wants to be on their team. And low impact leaders, they want people to have to be on their team. They don't want them to have freedom and options. They want them to have to be there. And they lead them in a way that doesn't help them have freedom and options. And low impact leaders are not growth oriented, so they're intimidated by any team member who is growth oriented. It could be a team member that's a peer to them. Let's say I'm a supervisor. If I'm not growth oriented, my team members who are on the same level as me, other supervisors I work with, if they're growth oriented and I'm not, they're going to be insecure and they're going to be intimidated by me. So we ain't going to have good teamwork. That's why if you're the leader, especially if you're the top leader, you got to grow and develop the team, everybody. But also low impact leaders, they're intimidated. If they're low impact leader, they're insecure. So if they're not growing and going, but someone who reports to them, someone who they would say works for them, because see, you work for low impact team leaders, but you work with high impact team leaders. But a low impact leader would be intimidated by anybody who's working for them on their team who is growth oriented, because they start to see them as a threat. So if you're a high impact leader and you're high up in the org chart, especially if you're at the top, you got to understand all these dynamics that are going on in your organization. You may cast out book studies and you do it volunteer, so only certain people get engaged. Guess who's going to get engaged? It's those who are growth oriented. They've been waiting for something like that. They're going to dive in. But at the same time, if their boss doesn't get engaged, the boss, you can already guarantee that boss is going to be insecure. That boss is going to be trying to hold those people back. That boss is going to be trying to look for ways probably to get rid of that person even. It's terrible to think of that, but that's what low impact leaders do. They get rid of threats any way they can. So as a high impact team member, you got to be growth oriented. When the team creates more options for the organization, everyone will benefit. When the leaders create more options for the team will benefit. And when you, your team, or your organization are out of options, life isn't getting better, it's getting worse. But too many people are goal-oriented. A lot of those supervisors who are not growth-oriented, they're goal-oriented, and their goal was to become a supervisor. And once they check the box, they're done. They're just hanging out, passing the days by, waiting to retire. Some of them don't even because they're not growth-oriented, they don't even want to climb any higher. They just wanted to be the boss. So the first level they get to be the boss, they're done. Some people. But too many people are goal-oriented. The problem with being goal-oriented is that when you reach your goal, you're done. Mission accomplished. That's not a high-impact team player. That's not the kind of person that's going to create a high-performance team. The key is to be growth-oriented first and goal-oriented second. In this manner, you're always setting new goals to facilitate continuous growth. One of the things I always tell people is, no matter where you're at in life, you should always be grateful. But then I'll say, but you should never be satisfied. And when I say you should never be satisfied, I'm saying you should be growth oriented. Always grateful for wherever you are in life, but never satisfied. Be hungry. Be hungry for the next level and beyond. If there is no next level and beyond, if you're at the top, be hungry to grow and develop other people and help them climb. That's what high impact team players do. And again, I may not have mentioned it directly, but this book applies to everybody at every level in any organization. It's not just for the front line. It's not just for the leaders. It's not just for the support people. Not just for the big boss at the top. It's for everybody. When you talk about teamwork, you're talking about everybody. And all of our books really are like that because they're filled with principles. But the context of this one, again, is teamwork. That's everybody. Everybody on the team. Charles Schulz remarked, "Life is like a 10-speed bike. Most of us have gears we never use." And I agree with him. I meet a lot of people who aren't using all the gears. Low impact players tend to settle on getting by instead of getting ahead. High impact players are always focused on climbing to the next level and beyond. And I pretty much bet, unless somebody told you to listen to this podcast, or unless you're sitting in a group, someone else is playing it, and you could care less or not, if you're listening to this because you want to be listening to it, odds are you're a high impact player. That's a good thing. You're going to have lots of freedom and a lot of options in your life. If you don't have them yet, just keep growing. They're going to be coming. So the foundation of growth is discipline. You got to have discipline to grow. You got to be able to give yourself a command and follow through with it. Like for me, it's read every day. Doesn't mean I read a book every day, but I read every day. At a minimum, a paragraph, but hardly ever. I don't even remember if it's ever been a paragraph, but that's my goal. One paragraph. That's all I got to read to keep integrity with myself and to have discipline is to read every day. However much, as long as it's a paragraph, it's up to me. I can read a paragraph and stop, or I can read a chapter and stop, or I can read the whole book and stop. But tomorrow, I got to at least read another paragraph. If you want to be growth-oriented, highly recommend you make that a habit as well and really focus a lot on personal growth and character development. And then you can mix in whatever competency you need to develop to be effective in your life. Study that as well. But about 80% of your time on character development, 20% of your time on competency development. Because your character is going to hold you back like an anchor, but your competency is going to launch you like a rocket. So the foundation of discipline is sacrifice. You got to sacrifice some time to read, to watch videos, to listen to audios or podcasts, audio book. If you're going to buy books, you got to sacrifice dollars, not just time, but dollars. Or if you're going to attend conferences and things like that, you may have to take off work. You may have to fly somewhere. It's a lot of sacrifice when you start growing. But the foundation of discipline is sacrifice. Sacrifice plus discipline equals growth. So when it comes to growth, high impact players are focused not only on personal growth, but also on leadership development. They understand leadership in its simplest form is authentic influence, which is based on a person's character, not their position, their title, their rank, or authority. High impact players see themselves and all of their teammates as leaders who should be developed. And I want to share with you as I start to wrap up this episode, quote with you, closing quote and some thoughts. The quote is from Mark Twain. He says, "I never let my schooling interfere with my education." I never let my schooling interfere with my education. See, schooling and education are two completely different things. We get our formal schooling in traditional K through 12 schools, technical colleges, universities, but we get our education throughout our lives. And I'm pretty sure I'm never going to have a PhD degree, an official PhD degree on a wall, and I actually could care less if I ever have one, because if I wanted one, they're easy to get. You just go get one. Go do your schoolwork, pay some money, pass a test, do that long enough, you get a PhD. I have zero interest in that. If I wanted one, I'd have one. What I want in life, I want a PhD in results. And I think I've already got a PhD in results. It's just not something you can put on the wall, but I got a stack of books. I got a stack of clients. I got a happy life. I got a happy wife. Life's good. That's a PhD in results. I want the same thing for you. But remember, your education comes from your life. So think about this. If you get serious about your education, what will change? Can you improve? Should you improve? How can you improve? And I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. It's from Michael Josephson. You've probably heard it before. He says, you don't have to be sick to get better. So I hope you'll listen to the next 29 episodes and dive deeper into these traits. I hope you don't wait. I hope you go get the book. You can read the book, read a chapter a week, and then get on the podcast. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.